Hi, this is Bruce Horak, and you are listening to the FSF Popcast.
The show that makes Captain Picard wish he hadn't made it so. No takesies backsies.
Our show is brought to you by our charity sponsor, the Red Shirt Widows and Orphans Fund, which supports the Wish Upon a Teen Foundation that helps out sick kids when they need it most. And just imagine the comfort you'll give Red Shirt crewman number 38. He'll know that when he puts on the red shirt and joins in on the Gorn hunt, that he didn't leave his family destitute and without hope, because the Red Shirt Widows and Orphans Fund has his back and what's left of his severed unicorn.
And now, a word from our show sponsor, Level Up Savers. Their link can be found in the show notes.
All right, so our guest today is a man who plays a very popular character on the latest version of Star Trek. We are, of course, talking about Strange New Worlds. And today we're excited to welcome the man who brought the character Hemmer to life, Bruce Horak. Welcome to the FSF Popcast.
Nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, very excited to have you here. I've been talking to some of my friends who are more versed in Trek than I am. And they're like, oh, Strange New Worlds. So they're very excited. They can't wait to see this, and we're excited to have you here to talk about it. So normally at the outset of any interview that we have here, I always like to talk to people about their backstories, because we're nerds and we love origin stories. But I got to talk to you about the return of the Gorn in episode 9. I really do, and I'm sure you've talked a lot about this, and I hope you're not sick of talking about it yet.
You're jumping right to the end.
I know, right?
He skipped the whole book and looking at the last page.
I did, yeah.
I'm the same way.
You know, the thing is, for me, is that Strange New Worlds was kind of like my gateway drug. It's what's getting me interested into Star Trek, because I've never been that big of a Star Trek fan before this. But that episode, holy bejesus, I was on the edge of my seat almost the entire time. I said, "Oh wow!" I don't know how many times. There's that Owen Wilson meme of him going, "Wow, wow." That was me.
Yeah.
That was me for the entirety of the episode. It was like Alien versus Predator versus Star Trek. It was fantastic. That was an extremely intense episode, and I was wondering if there is something behind the scenes that we don't know about as fans that helped make that episode special for you.
Oh, so much. I had been anticipating that episode since I was cast in the role. They had told me that Hemmer was going to go, and that it was going to be a good death, that it was going to be a bit of all right. And so I'd been looking forward to that. So reading the script itself was just awesome. I was so excited to get to do that, to actually get to, flip the Vulcan salute and jump out the back of the ship and all of that. I mean, it's just it's a hero's death. And I think, that's what every actor hopes for, is a good death scene, or, a sequel, or a series of sequels, really. But yeah, it was a lot of fun to shoot. I mean, the whole setup of it was just like, the environment of the set was done up as a horror film. So even when we weren't on camera, there were flickering lights in the hallways, and they kept sickbay real cool for us when we were between takes. And we just had this environment of shooting a horror film, and yeah, that was a riot. I think I lost a lot of sleep while we shot that one, just because it gets under your skin when you're spending a whole day in a fun house, basically.
Yeah, I can imagine. I was holding out hope there at the end of that episode that your character was going to make it. And I'm like, because they were like, "Oh, we'll do this and we'll fix you and we'll if we have time."
So many options.
Right. And then Hemmer swan dives off that. I'm like, "No, that's going to do it for him right there, unless he's got a rocket strapped to him. He's done."
Yeah. It was, and it's actually great. I've been really enjoying reading all of the speculations and, the ideas of how to bring Hemmer back. And, yeah, it's amazing the creativity and the imagination that people are employing to find a way. You know, they don't want to break canon, they don't want to lose the sacrifice that he's done, but how do we bring him back? And you know, I must admit that behind the scenes we sat around and came up with a few ideas of our own as to how Hammer returns in season 3, 4, 5, or 6, or perhaps he jumps over to Discovery Timeline, or does the Gorn hatch out of him and is half Gorn, half Enar, and so battles with its own pacifist nature. The son of Hammer.
That would be fun.
Yeah, and then the child of Hammer teams up with the child of Lon, and then they go in a sort of a cop buddy film. And anyway, it's a whole other spin-off, maybe a comic book. Yeah, we could really dig in there, but yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I honestly think that he was one of the characters that I've enjoyed the most throughout the series, because I liked his stoicism, that, you know, he didn't really get shook by much. And even when things, like even in episode 8, which, by the way, I have a chronically ill daughter. That episode rocked me to tears. That was, oof, that was a little brutal.
Yeah.
But I liked, even when everything was kind of going awry, you know, Hammer's just like, yeah, we can take care of this. And he was just kind of just, you know, very on the level, just very chill, just kind of taking care of things.
Yeah, he's the kind of engineer you want to have in a sticky situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe the reason he's so stoic is because you had so many prosthetics on your face that it's hard to portray emotion. Does that make it a little easier? That actually leads to my next question, Tim. Is it okay if I interrupt you here?
Absolutely.
And take over for a moment. Yeah, I would love to know, given the limitations of your facial movements because of all the prosthetics and the makeup and the so forth, what is the hardest emotion to portray, and how hard is it to be scared when you're talking to a puppet or a puppeteer?
The prosthetics are actually incredibly flexible. There's I think it's a 15 piece or 13 pieces, individual pieces that are glued on to the face. So there's quite a bit of articulation, which is surprising considering just how dense it looks. But yeah, I can get quite a bit out of there. Dealing with the puppeteers was a riot. I mean, they were just spectacular, moving those Gorn around, and you know, they would keep them alive between takes and goof around a little bit.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I think we got some decent behind the scenes shots of, you know, Hammer with his kids.
Excellent. And I'd like to officially request I don't know if you're familiar with the website Does the Dog Die, for people like me who can't handle a film where there's a possibility that the dog dies. So there's doesthedogdie.com that tells you in advance if you want to watch a movie or not, because the dog makes it or doesn't make it. And I think we need a similar one for favorite characters like this, where we get to a little advance notice so we can sort of steel ourselves for it.
Well, he is in a red shirt from the start, and I wore my red shirt
true.
today in honor of Hammer.
Excellent.
Very well done.
So since Tim didn't go through it and he jumped to the last page of the book, we do love backstories. So we may or not be collecting them to see if you become the hero or the villain in your story. Just kidding. But so what is your backstory that got you into acting?
My dad was a high school drama teacher and English teacher, and my mother is a writer and a bit of a Renaissance woman, really, musician and singer and all of it. So I'm the youngest of 4 boys, and I grew up in a family of artists. So there was always music and theater and drawing and painting and just everything happening in the house all the time. So it was kind of a foregone conclusion that I would follow in some degree in the arts. Yeah, all the way through, you know, high school and into college, I studied theater. So it kind of led me on that path. I never thought I would get into film and TV. I thought I would always be in the live, like the performing arts. And then the casting call went out for Star Trek, and my agent said, you know, you should seriously consider this. And it, you know, just landed right there in front of me. They were looking for a blind or visually impaired performer specifically, and because I'm legally blind, it just seemed like, okay, the door is finally open for me here in this industry, which can be pretty closed. And also that it was Star Trek, and I'd been a Star Trek fan since I was a kid. And so it just seemed like this is a golden opportunity that I absolutely couldn't miss. And so put my hat in the ring, and the next thing I knew, I was walking onto the bridge of the Enterprise.
So just a kind of a follow up to Nick's question here. Just this just kind of popped in my head because now, you know, as an actor, you talked about all these different mediums that you had participated in though growing up. So you know we know you as an actor, but pre-interview we talked a little bit about the images behind you that you've painted. There's a guitar sitting next to you on the floor.
Oh,
yeah.
forgot
See,
about that there.
It slowly moved its way in. It snuck up on you. Is there a medium that you enjoy more than anything? Like, you know, if you had your druthers, is there one that you'd say, like, you know, this is where I would like to hang my hat and this is what I want to be known for?
Oh boy, that changes daily, almost weekly. I just finished doing a run of a play in Toronto, which closed on Thursday, and whatever day it's Saturday now. And I came back to my hometown of Stratford, and I've been in the studio painting all day, working on my portrait series. So it really depends on the day. Today, there's nothing I would rather be doing than painting. And tomorrow, I've got to do some music composition, and I'm sure when I'm doing that, I'll be like, this is all I want to do. I get itchy feet really fast, and not just physically, but I think creatively as well. I moved to Toronto, Ontario, when I was about 24 years old, and that was specifically to pursue a career in acting. But I immediately got the bug for writing and doing clown and live music and improv, and I just found that it didn't really matter what I wanted to do in Toronto. There's somebody who's willing to go there with you and jump on the bandwagon if there isn't already a bandwagon, you know, moving down the street. And I find that kind of creative drive and flexibility to be really exciting. I put my stuff into storage about 22 years ago, and I just went on the road, and I would go gig to gig, and whatever gig would come up, whether it was acting or painting or doing music, I would just say yes to it. And to me, that's just the best way to live. It's a very creative life. It's never the same day twice. And you know, if I'm gonna, I look back on the last 20 years of my career, and I really can't pin as being like that was the thing I wanted to be known for or wanted to be doing for the rest of my life. I think having options. If there's one thing I want to be known for, it's a guy with options.
I think we'll just dub you Renaissance guy and leave it at that.
Yeah. There you go. No, I think that's a great answer. Honestly, everything I draw starts with a circle or an oval.
Great.
And it doesn't progress well from there. But if I was able to do paintings and things like that, I think that I can see where that would be appealing. Where you know you have these different options of things that you can do to express your creativity. So, no, I think that's great.
Thank you.
I belong to a rather large Star Trek fan club. And so I put it out there that, hey, we're going to be talking with Bruce, you know, and is there anything that you guys want to ask him? So we have, I think, 3 or 4 questions from people inside the fan group who are very curious about a few things. So here we go. Aaron Matt Daniels asked, how much of his own personality did he put into Hemmer?
Hemmer and I are not alike. He's a very, very high status individual. He's really competent, which I am not. He's a genius, and he tells people, which I don't think I would ever do that. Yeah, there's a lot about Hemmer that I admire for sure. I wish I had his sort of superhuman, incredible ability to see with his telepathy. God, that would be great. Right. But it was, you know, that character arrived on the page, and really it was just about finding a way in for me. And I dug into the people that I know who are really high status and who are geniuses, and well, I would never tell them this, but you know, a little arrogant.
Sure. Do you find it easier to play characters that are not similar to your own personality, or do you enjoy that? Or
I do enjoy that. You know, that was a big part of why I wanted to get into acting in the first place, was being able to step into somebody else's experience and walk a little bit in their shoes. I love that. To me, it's an exercise in empathy and compassion to literally, you know, embody somebody else, to see the world from their point of view. I mean, even when you're playing the delight of playing a bad guy is that they don't think they're bad. So you get to kind of flex a bit of those muscles and pretend to be somebody else. I find that really appealing. Is it, I've done some shows where it really is just a reflection of myself and I'm standing on stage and speaking. And to me, that just feels more like public speaking than acting. To me, acting is that chance to go somewhere else. I was lucky that with Star Trek that they were looking for someone with a lived experience of being visually impaired. But to me, Hemmer's not. I mean, he sees better than Daredevil.
Agreed. A nice reference too. Good job.
Thank you, sir. He's my favorite.
Nice.
Nice. So I have another question from the Star Trek group, and this one came from Zach Patterson. And Zach wants to know, what was your favorite moment on set?
Oh, yeah, this just leaps to mind right away. But Celia and I were sitting in the green room at the AR wall waiting to go on with our spacesuits on or something. And we got talking about food. And I mentioned how I'm a big fan of popcorn. And then the next time we went on set, came back and there was a huge bag of popcorn on my seat for me. Because that's the kind of person Celia is. She listens and she takes care of people.
It sounds like on the set, that was, sort of the basic
oh, yeah.
status of everybody.
Just so thrilled to be there, to be working on this. And you would, it's so funny. Like one of the first questions you'd get is, so are you a Star Trek fan? Are you a Star Trek fan? And immediately just the stories of, how people come to the series, what got them interested in it, what their favorite, takes of it were. And yeah, and for me, I mean, I grew up watching the Enterprise flying through the cosmos, so to walk onto that set and, getting to pick up a communicator or play with a tricorder at one point, it was scratching off all the bucket list items. And yeah, you have to play a really high status cranky guy, but you've got a big smile on your face.
It's okay, we can't see it under the yeah. We couldn't see the smile under the 15 pieces of prosthetic.
That's good. Yeah.
So did you at certain points go out of your way on set to do certain things on your little bucket list there?
There was a couple of moments. Yeah, I did sneak onto a shuttle pod and had a few photos of Hemmer in his wizard outfit pretending to fly the shuttle, just because that seemed really like something he needed to do. And yeah, in between takes, I would often just kind of let my hands wander a little bit, just to get it. I'm like, are these jujubes, or what are these candy buttons? And yeah.
Nice.
Doesn't everybody have to at least throw themselves against the railing once or twice when?
Just do the Star Trek shake. Yeah.
Right.
It was brought up earlier about the emotions through prosthetics, and some people can find it hard to portray different emotions. And I would imagine you would use body language a little bit more when portraying emotions. Mm-hmm. So what would be one piece of advice or technique that you would suggest for someone that wanted to improve on their acting abilities?
Breathing. I think it's something that it's the fundamentals of working with emotion is finding where it sits in the breath and then breathing from that place. If you find fear in your gut, or if you find confidence in the chest out and the full breath, then start with that, and the rest of it will come. I think a lot of actors are connected to that, and then finding the emotional sound. For me, when I finally had the whole Hemmer look on, the first thing I did was kind of get my camera out and zoom in on the face and figure out what the sound was that this kind of face would make. And underneath the prosthetics, I kind of felt my way around through it, and then let it drop into the body. And yeah, finding a way into to where the breath sits and how the breath moves through the body, and the sound that then comes from that kind of breathing, and then the voice will emerge.
All right, excellent.
Awesome.
Strange New Worlds was a pretty appropriate title for me, at least, because the show has opened up Star Trek for me. I've actually gone back, started watching the original series from the beginning because of Strange New Worlds. I've always been more of a Star Wars guy. I've always been on that side of the camp. That's where I've been hanging out, maybe teasing some of the guys on the Trek side a little bit.
Sure.
Or a lot. But for someone like me who's kind of been sitting on the fence, so to speak, what would you say the attraction of this show is to them and why they should give it a chance?
Because the Star Trek performers will have a stuffed Wookiee doll during their interview. And they understand the value of a good prop. The thing that always appealed to me about Star Trek was just kind of the general tone of optimism and working together, and that humanity ultimately finds a way through together, and that the next mission is not one of conquest, is not one of colonization, it's exploration. It's about seeing what's out there, meeting what's out there, and coming to an understanding of it. And that to me, that general kind of MO around the premise of the series is one that I just keep coming back to, and I feel like Strange New Worlds is definitely just hitting the nail on the head with the stories that they're telling around that, and how, there's going to be general conflict with this, when you leave your front door, but how do you do it, and how do you find another way through? That to me is the appeal of the series.
Yeah, I think one of the things I like about it is that it does have that more of a science fiction feel to it, where it's the optimism of the human race and moving forward, and how, exactly what you just said, the resolution of conflict. Whereas in Star Wars, we just whip out a laser sword and cut you in half, and call it a day. So
yeah, but Star Wars, not to go off on that, but it gets into the good and evil battle, and I think that's just, it's always makes for compelling viewing when you just separated your camps, and it's very obvious and very clear, and we get some threads into why we become evil. But Star Trek gets into the question of, what is the nature of evil, and is something evil just because it's on the other side of the fence from you, that kind of thing. So they're two very different types of storytelling, but cool effects, eh?
Absolutely. Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So there was another question from the Star Trek group that I would like to know the answer to as well. So Ken Buckler asks, would you be open to a Hemmer origin story?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Ken. Yes.
Do you have any theories on what that might look like, or some of the pieces we might find out?
Oh, it's a 12 movie deal. And no, what does it look like? I'm curious about that. I mean, there's so little, of the detail of what his life was before the series, that it just feels like a wide open book. I could write it. I mean, the question of how old he is, even, does he have a family? What does the Enar family look like? We know that there's only 1,000 of them left. And that they're reclusive and that they're pacifists, but beyond that, like the society and the culture is just kind of wrapped up in mystery. But his personal story of how he comes to join Starfleet and the conflict with, well, he's going essentially into a military style organization, and as a pacifist, that must have caused some rifts, that must have certainly caused some big questions, coming to the realization or this understanding as he does. I think he talks about it in episode 4 about not fighting, but will fight for the ideals. And that's a really clear line in the sand for someone to come to. And was there ever a point where he crossed that?
Yeah, that'd be great. The prequel of the prequel.
That's it.
Is my prequel.
I was thinking they're such a self-sacrificing race that's why they're dwindling in numbers.
Yeah, that's right.
It's not the best evolutionary strategy, maybe.
So we have a Facebook group. It has over 204,000 members, and it is just filled with memes.
Memes, yes.
Yes. So what universe or nerdiverse would you think it would be fun to just pick Hemmer up and drop him in?
I only just recently got into playing Dungeons and Dragons during the pandemic, and I think I ended up, because I couldn't talk about it with the friends that I was playing D&D with, but I think a lot of the wizard characters that I was picking, character traits and all that I was picking out, were kind of drawn loosely around Hemmer. So I think he would actually fit very well into the campaign that I was playing. And then when Hemmer got to dress up as a wizard, I kind of just thought, this is almost too perfect. He needs to live. He needs to live there.
I was thinking it'd be kind of cool to drop him into David Tennant's Doctor Who.
Oh.
And have him and Tennant go back and forth. The discussions and arguments between the two of them would be fantastic.
Truly.
So.
Have you ever done a portrait of Hemmer?
I did a digital one. I haven't done an acrylic painting of him yet, but I did do a digital portrait of Hemmer for the Sick Kid Foundation in Edmonton, Alberta. They were doing a
Wonderful.
fundraiser. Yeah.
Oh,
Wonderful.
fantastic.
Is that a portrait or a self-portrait then?
It's an acrylic selfie.
How very meta.
Truly. Using both sides of my brain to answer that question.
There you go. Well, Bruce, we're at a point in our show where we like to take our guests through a little bit of a quiz.
Okay.
But before we get into that quiz, we kept mentioning that Star Trek group. So before we get into the quiz, on behalf of many of the Trek fans, we all want to thank you for Hemmer. Seriously, he was an amazing character, and you expertly brought him to life. And many people are anxious to see what you do next because of your work on Star Trek. So before we get into the quiz, just thank you for that. Really well done, sir.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
All right. Now for the quiz.
Okay.
This quiz is called Talkin' Trek. So it's 4 questions. All questions are multiple choice.
Okay.
All right. If you get 3 out of the 4 correct, we'd like to send you a book. And the book is called The Custodians of the Cosmos. It's written by Drayton Allen, who also is Nick's dad. But it's all about a young man who goes and joins something quite like Starfleet, but not Starfleet, litigious reasons. He washes out and is able to rejoin as a custodian to boldly clean up after those who had boldly just went.
No. Oh,
Yes.
Great. This sounds hilarious.
Yeah. So if you get 3 of the 4 questions correct, we'll send you the book.
Yeah, I'm going to try.
If you get 50%, so 2 questions or less correct, we take your picture, we make a meme out of you, and we put you in our Facebook group. We call it our fun sequence.
Awesome.
Do you agree to that?
What happens if I don't get any right?
Oh, you definitely get a meme.
Oh, good. Great. I need to be a meme. Let's do it.
There you go. All right.
What is the name of Data's evil twin brother? Is it Lore?
Lore, eh?
You are correct.
All right. Number 2. Who was temporarily the captain of the Enterprise while Picard was captured by the Cardassians? Arthur Peck, Miles O'Brien, or Edward Jellicoe? And that's the Cardassians, not the Kardashians, which is a very, very different sort of kidnapping.
That's right. This is there are 5 lights episode. Okay. 4 lights. Oh, my Lord. I'm going to say Miles O'Brien. I think it's B.
I'm going to give you a second chance.
I guess it's... Oh. What were the other 2? It was...
Arthur Peck or Edward Jellicoe?
I don't know. I think it's C. I'm going to guess C.
Ding, 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 ding. It is
There you
Edward
go.
Jellicoe. Very good.
What is the principle of Starfleet's prime directive? Is it A, diplomacy and nonviolence, B, non-intervention, or C, exploration and scientific study?
B?
Yes.
You are correct.
That's 2.5 correct.
Just above meme.
You're just above meme.
Going for the book. Going for the book.
All right. Number 4. Which of the following was not a founding species of the United Federation of Planets, a collection of governments based on universal liberty and equality? A, the Andorians, B, the Tellarites, or C, and I'm going to say this wrong, the Betazoids?
Betazoids.
Betazoids.
C, Betazoids.
Very
You
good.
are correct. Very good.
That's a book, sir.
Yes!
All right. Very good.
You had me with the Kardashians.
Well, thank you, Bruce, so much for being on the show today. Where could our listeners go to find out more about your paintings and other things that you work on?
Well, I do have a website that I maintain. I've also got a Patreon page, which is becoming more and more active, which is great. So I do weekly, sometimes daily updates of what I'm up to on Patreon. My name, Bruce Horak, on that. Also, to let your listeners know, in case they're in Canada and happen to be around Ottawa, I'm opening my solo show, my one-person show, Assassinating Thomson, at the National Arts Centre in Ottawa, running July 26th to the 31st. And that's a show where I paint a portrait of the entire audience while I tell the story of how I became one of Canada's only visually impaired visual artists, and I solve the mystery of who killed Tom Thomson, who was an iconic Canadian painter. And I do it all in 75 minutes, and then I auction off the portrait of the audience for a local charity.
Oh, that's awesome.
Fantastic.
Check me out at brucehorak.com or patreon.com/brucehorak.
Nice.
Very
Thank you. We will make sure those get put into our show description so listeners
you.
can check them out.
Thank you very much.
All right. We also want to remind people that subscribing is the single most important thing you can do to help our show continue to grow and get more amazing guests like Bruce Horak here to have these funny moments and things for you to be able to listen to. So please subscribe. It helps us to continue to grow, like I said, but also go check out Bruce's pages there at Patreon and also his website. Like was mentioned, those will be in the links below. But if for whatever reason you are not happy with the content of our show today, please feel free to lodge a complaint with the head of our complaint department, the Gorn. Only Captain Kirk can successfully avoid their terror with a rightly placed Kirk foo chop to the back of the neck. But the rest of us are just Gorn baby incubators and meals on wheels once those babies hatch. These terrifying reptilian creatures will stop at nothing to ensure that your complaint will be handled, though. But on the other hand, we also can't ensure that they won't take a bite out of the complainer, too. So keep that in mind when you complain about Nick later.
Thanks again, Bruce.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Bruce. Thanks for
Thank
watching,
you.
everybody. Goodbye.
Bye.
On behalf of the rest of the hosts of the FSF Podcast, we want to thank you for listening to this episode. If you'd like to be a guest on a future episode, please contact us by means of Twitter or Instagram using the handle @FSFPodcast. Or go to www.fsfpodcast.com and click on the Contact Me link. Thanks again, and hope you enjoyed the episode.